Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a bit of a kind of chill video for you all. This is going to be very off the cuff. I literally had this idea today because I was thinking about making a video about literally every book that I read in 2022, and then I thought I don't want to talk about 67 books because that video will be way too long, and also I don't think all of the books I read really deserve to be talked about on my channel. I know, a little bit spicy of me, but it's just the truth. So I thought I would just sit here and talk you through. I have my story graph open on my laptop over here, and I thought I would just sit here, talk you through that a little bit, and kind of talk about books as they come up and decide which ones to mention kind of as I go through them in chronological order. And then at the same time, I'm going to be doing my nails because the current state of my nails, I don't know if you can see that, but they're very uneven lengths and they're very chipped and they look gross. So I thought it would be a good way of killing two birds with one stone. So here we are. We're going to talk about my books, my reading in 2022, and do my nails. Have no fear that this is becoming a beauty YouTube channel because while I did enjoy that content back in the day, I would be terrible at being a beauty YouTuber because I hardly ever wear makeup, and I'm also terrible at reviewing things. I guess just to give you a bit of an overview, I did read 67 books in 2022. My goal was 50, so not to, pat myself on the back, but I did crush that. I will say I did count like poetry collections and graphic novels, and I did read a fair number of shorter books as well. So I guess the first book that I'd like to talk about that I read this year, last year, is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. And that I really actually enjoyed. It was my first Casey McQuiston book that I've read. This nail polish is like not coming off, but I don't know why. So I'll just scrub harder. I did also read One Last Stop. Spoiler, I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars at the time that I read it. Now looking back, I don't know if I would rate it that highly, but overall, like, super fun book, and I think one of the best romances that I read this year. If you're looking for something that's like light, fun, queer romance, like good kind of like wholesome themes, it's also really funny, like I would definitely recommend picking that up. I also read Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman, and this one, I don't know if I would put it in like my top books of the year, just because it's hard. I feel like it's so hard when you get temporarily removed from a reading experience, because in the moment you might be really into it, but then maybe it doesn't stick with you as much in kind of the long run. And don't get me wrong, I love Heartstopper, and I think it's a great series, and I have read, I think all of the ones that are out by now, or however many I could find at the library. I have yet to watch the Netflix series because I enjoyed the book so much that I don't want to displace like Alice's imagining of those characters with like the actors, which happens pretty rarely for me. But we'll see. I might watch it this year and like give in to the urge, because I feel like people have been saying it's really good. I feel like I started the beginning of the year with like a lot of lighter reads, and as the year went on, I maybe got a little bit darker, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's Heartstopper. Then I read The Metamorphosis, and I actually read this as an audiobook. It was super short. It was like, I think under 5 hours, I want to say. And if you don't know The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, it is a classic, and it's about a guy who wakes up one morning and he discovers that he's turned into a giant insect, and it's kind of about him trying to navigate that and figuring out like how to keep this a secret from his family for as long as possible, and how he's supposed to get to work, and like how to live life now that you're a giant insect. This I actually really enjoyed. The audiobook performance was like fine. I don't think it was anything special, but I enjoyed it because I had a lot of driving to do this past year and it helped kind of pass the time. I thought it was a great shorter read, so if you're intimidated by classics and you want to start with something that's kind of like funny and engaging and not too much of a time commitment, then I would suggest picking this one up. Okay, next, One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, which I just mentioned earlier. This was great. I don't know, I would probably have to reread this and Red, White, and Royal Blue to figure out which was my favorite between the two of those, but I think probably One Last Stop would rank slightly higher just because I feel like, I mean, I found it more relatable, but beyond that, the elements of time travel and the way that they blend a little bit of sci-fi with romance, and just like, it's a very engaging story, and it's definitely like, there are hills and valleys. It's not light all the way through. It kind of deals with some darker themes, but I think that's a good thing, and I kind of enjoyed that about it because I thought that the way those elements were woven together was actually really compelling. Generally in romance, I don't always love the kind of like steamy sequences. Like, I generally feel like they're like really, really overdone, or like kind of like unrealistic, or I don't know, they just never seem to work quite for me. And this was definitely not the case with One Last Stop. I actually thought that the steamy sections were like compelling, and that they accomplished what they're supposed to do, which is like, you know, I don't have to say it. So yeah, that's One Last Stop. Shortly after that, I read The Great Gatsby. This was another audiobook for me, or an audiobook pick. What was I going to say? Why did my mouth do that shape? I don't know. I had not read The Great Gatsby maybe since high school, which by now that is like approaching 10 years ago. Oh my god, I feel old. But overall, I really enjoyed rereading it. I thought it lent itself really well to the audiobook medium as a whole. Just really like the way Fitzgerald writes, and the prose just like sticks in my head, and I'm like, wow, that's so beautiful. The story I still found compelling. Of course, I knew everything that was going to happen because by now, this is my second read of the book, and I've seen like multiple of the film adaptations, and I did really like internalize that story in a major way. So there were no, like, it was all kind of spoiled in terms of the plot, but I still got a lot of enjoyment out of revisiting it, and I think this is something that I'll definitely kind of continue to reread maybe like every couple years, because I think it's one that's interesting to return to, like, at kind of different stages in my life. It was also interesting to approach it instead of like in a high school English classroom where the teacher is like, oh, and like, what's he doing with color symbolism? And like doing a lot of like close reading and analysis, just to kind of like let the story wash over you and enjoy it from that perspective. I love analyzing texts. I mean, I am a Virgo. That is like one of my primary traits. But I thought it was nice to kind of get that different lens, and just kind of like experience the story as it was happening in the audiobook medium. Yeah, that's The Great Gatsby. Next, I read two more romances, The Bride Test and The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. And I actually really enjoyed both of these. They get high marks for me as far as like autistic representation and also just like being interesting. I think I liked The Heart Principle the most of the three. I'm trying to remember what the other one is. I think it's The Kiss Quotient. Yeah, that's the third one. Or in order, it's The Bride Test, The Kiss Quotient, The Heart Principle. But I think my favorite one was The Heart Principle. It's like a little bit darker thematically and kind of deals with more like what I feel like are real life issues, or like, I don't know, coping with trauma in a relationship and how you deal with that. As well as neurodiversity. So I really enjoyed both of those. Again, they're like pretty quick reads. If you're in a reading slump, they're a great thing to pick up. I think I read The Kiss Quotient, which was the first one that I read, I want to say. I think I read that in like 2 days, and probably the same for the others. So yeah, good quick reads. If you're into romance, pick them up. Next, I have one that I'm dying to reread, and that is Cold Enough for Snow by Jessica O. I've heard it pronounced various ways, her last name, so please correct me in the comments if you know how to say it. This is like a very, very slim volume. I believe it's under 150 pages, under 200 pages. And it's basically a little novella about a character and her mother going on this trip together, and it's very much like, it's very kind of like lyrical and poetic, and not a lot happens. You kind of just follow the course of their vacation, but a lot of it is the narrator kind of reflecting on her relationship with her mom, and it's very kind of like interior. I really just I loved the writing. I thought it was perfect in terms of the length of it. And I think it's so hard to write something that's like so tight and also so kind of well constructed. It definitely left me wanting more, and I kind of wished that there was more to the story, but then at the same time, I thought it kind of ended in the perfect way. I did read this, I think, close to like spring, summertime, so it has been a while since I looked at it, but it is definitely one that I would like to pick up and read again, because I thought I got a lot out of it the first time around, and I would like to do a slower kind of reread where I really take my time the second time through. Then I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and it was kind of mid for me, so I'm not really going to talk about it much. The thing that I enjoyed most about it was how the ending of it, or the last, I don't know, 50 pages, 30 pages, really reframes the rest of the book, and I thought that was pretty masterfully done. However, I don't know that I vibed with the writing that much. It felt very sad, wealthy white girl having problems, and I just wasn't that interested. And for a lot of it, I kind of felt bored and was hoping that it would be over. However, that's not to say that a literary experience has to be upbeat and positive and has to be super engaging to be good writing, whatever that means. I just think that this was not really for me. And from what I've heard of Lapvona, I won't be picking it up. If you want to hear someone go off on Lapvona, I will attempt to link Sally Thames' video down below, because she has a good a good rant that I very much enjoyed, and that convinced me once and for all that I do not want to pick up that book. So yeah, I don't know if I'll be picking up anything else by Moshfegh. I've heard good things about Eileen as well, so I might give that a shot. But yeah, My Year of Rest and Relaxation did not rest or relax me. Or maybe it rested and relaxed me too much and made me bored out of my mind. Bro, this video is getting long and I haven't even started painting my nails yet. I'm still taking the polish off. Whew, okay. So the next book I'd like to talk about is Let's Talk About Hard Things by Anna Sale. This was an audiobook that I listened to probably 6 months ago at this point, and it's based on the kind of concept of Anna Sale's podcast, and the kind of whole premise of it is that in American culture there are things that are taboo to talk about, and I'm not actually sure how culturally specific the podcast is and whether she talks to people from other countries or what have you. But that's the kind of premise of the book, is that there are these things that are taboo that we don't discuss that we should be discussing. Death, Sex, and Money podcast. These are the hard things that we don't talk about. So the premise of the book is to talk about these things and to have open discussions about them, and to kind of demonstrate how when we demystify death, sex, and money, which are the three kind of that was not three, there we go. The three kind of major sections of the book, when we demystify those topics, basically our lives are improved and communication is easier and we feel more prepared when loved ones pass away, and etc., etc. This I really enjoyed. Parts of it made me tear up. There are stories in here that get quite sad and quite dark, but if you're looking for an engaging nonfiction read, I would recommend it. And I think it also kind of encourages the reader to be more vulnerable and bring up kind of difficult topics that you might shy away from with your loved ones, with your friends, with your family, etc. And it really shows like the value in doing that in a major way. I also found it like pretty inspiring. It's under 9 hours, so it's not like a crazy time commitment if you have a commute in the morning, or if you just enjoy listening to audiobooks when you, I don't know, when you run, when you're at the gym, whenever you listen to audiobooks. I did not read a ton of nonfiction last year. It's like one of my goals this year is to up my nonfiction, especially in terms of like informative nonfiction or like informational nonfiction, not just memoir. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a good memoir, but I have so many, I'm like staring at my bookshelf right in front of me, and I have so many nonfiction titles that I have yet to touch. And I would really like to read them because they seem interesting. Maybe the best book I read this year, I don't know. It's really hard to compare, like, you know, different genres, etc. But one of the best books I read this year by far was Time as a Mother, which is Ocean Vuong's latest poetry collection. It came out in 2022. I got a copy for my mom, and then I read it, and I got a copy for myself too. Ocean Vuong is one of the best writers of our time. Is that a hot take? I don't think so. I think it's an accurate take. The way he crafts sentences, the way he crafts poetry, his writing is just so exquisite and kind of touches on something that's so uniquely human and also so kind of like finely wrought, but without being like needlessly precious or like pretentious. I feel like it's such a fine line, because when writing is really good but you feel like the author is telling you how good it is and like showing off and being like, yeah, I know I can write, yeah, I'm so good at this, it gets kind of icky and it like almost like turns me off of the book. Ocean Vuong is never like that. If you haven't read On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, it's probably time for me to reread that again. Maybe I'll do a video about rereads. I feel like there are a lot of books that I read in like 2020, 2021 that I would like to go back to. But yeah, Time as a Mother, read it. If you like poetry, if you don't like poetry, if you love your mom, if you hate your mom, I just think it's amazing, and I would recommend it to everyone. Quickly, Normal People by Sally Rooney. I read, and I like hardly remember it all. I feel like I read it in the wrong circumstances because I was finishing it up when I like got quite sick and was just like lying around my apartment and coughing a lot and chugging tea and soup and like being very out of it and like going in and out of like taking naps during the day and then not being able to sleep at night and like having fever dreams and stuff. So I really did not internalize this at all. But I did give it 4.5 stars at the time that I reviewed it, so I must have liked it. I recall it being really easy to read, and I recall really enjoying the discussions around academia and kind of just like the challenges of being in those spaces and the kind of weirdness of people like talking around things without ever actually getting to the crux of what they want to say, which is coincidentally sometimes what I do on this channel, though not on purpose. Normal People I enjoyed, and I will probably reread it at some point, though I don't think this year because I just have so many things that I want to get to. I really enjoyed it, and I would very much like to get to at least one more Sally Rooney in the next 12 months. Ideally, Conversations with Friends. And then I also want to read Beautiful World, Where Are You at some point, and then we'll save the short stories for another time because I got enough on my plate right now. Oh, and Now I Spill the Family Secrets, an illustrated memoir by Margaret Kimball. I loved this book. I thought it was so good, and I gave it 5 stars. The art style was perfection. It's all in black and white illustration, which I loved. I loved the narrative style. I thought that the images were so strong, and also that the words and the way the story was put together was so strong. And I think it's really rare to find graphic novels, though I did find a bunch of great graphic novels this year, that like really balance the two in a very kind of like exciting and meaningful way. And I also really appreciated the way in which Kimball kind of like takes responsibility for like being the steward of her kind of family history, and there's a lot of research involved. And in the story she also details like bringing the manuscript to her family and being like, hey, like, is it okay that I talk about such and such? Or like just kind of, you can tell that she has a sense of her responsibility as an author. And I think that's something that's really important, especially when you publish something that like can seem really damning or, yeah, just like doesn't show people in the best light, because of course being in a family is a beautiful thing, but it can also be a really hard thing, and not everyone is going to look incredible in every light in every situation. So I thought it was really important that she did that, and that was a component in the story. I will say it has some really dark sections. Check trigger warnings, take care of yourself, etc. Hopefully the sound of me filing my nails is not too loud. I love this, and I haven't seen anyone talk about it really, so yes, read it. Oh boy, okay, we've gotten to heartbreak territory. In the fall, I read The Death of Vivek Oji and had my heart ripped from my chest. This book is so sad, but also so beautiful. It is like such a rare thing, I think, to have all of these emotional components balanced so well in a book. I wanted more. I wanted like a follow-up novel. If Akwake Emezi is watching this video, first of all, hi, I love your work. I'm really excited to read more by you. But second of all, I would like a second book that is all about Osita and his life after the ending of this book. So yeah, if you have any time to get around to that and you want to like send that to me, I would really appreciate it. But jokes aside, this is probably one of the best books I've read ever in my life. And I thought it was so good. I don't want to give a lot away because I think it's kind of spoiled to begin with. Like, you know that the main character dies at some point, because that's in the title. But we have multiple perspectives. We have multi-generational elements of the story. We have queer elements of the story. There's so much that happens, and the writing is really beautiful, and it's heartbreaking. You'll probably cry. I cried reading this. And then I just like sat on my bed and was like, what am I supposed to do now? And then I had to go to the book club meeting because I finished it on the same day, and I showed up like 15 minutes late, like with my eyes red, and I was just like, hi guys, I'm still processing this. So yeah, it was a good time all in all. I would highly recommend this. I think this has been talked about extensively on BookTube already, so there's a good chance that if you're watching this, you've already read it. But if you haven't, go read it. It's so good. And you will cry, you will feel all the emotions, but it will be worth it. Whenever Blue Moon Readathon happened, I had a reread. One of the spaces was for a reread. I think it was a Root space, I want to say. But if you don't know what Blue Moon Readathon is, it's a readathon that is run by Kirsty and Allison of Allison Pages, or Allie of Allison Pages. I don't know. Can I call you Allie? You're not watching this. But it's a great readathon. It's very low pressure. It's very fun. There are bingo cards that are nature themed. Like, what's not to love? During that readathon, I read The Penultimate Peril, which is the 12th book in a series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. I don't know if this would be technically considered a middle grade. I think probably. I think I probably read it when I was in like 5th grade, 6th grade. I want to say, yeah, like around that time. I don't actually remember. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed returning to the story. The turns of phrase that Lemony Snicket uses, and the illustration style is just like, it's so good. This book was like, or this whole series, I guess, was kind of a, I don't know, a pivotal part of my childhood reading experience. We're finally getting to the polish. This is a base coat though. I just really enjoyed the books. I really vibed with the characters, and yeah, they were great. So it was fun to return to it, and I was like a little bit nervous and scared to return to it because I just had this fear that they wouldn't mean as much to me now, or that I would be kind of underwhelmed by the writing, or something of that nature would happen and it would kind of like spoil the books for me, I guess. However, I think really the opposite was true, in that it was so nice to return to something that I loved as a kid, and to find that yeah, they're still good and they're still like something that I enjoy. I would like to reread the whole series at some point. I don't know if that's gonna happen this year, because this is like the year of giant books for me, and I am already like neck deep in so many books, that it's kind of hard to think about like rereading, because I feel like I'm prioritizing getting to things that have been on my TBR forever, and like a lot of classic literature and things like that. But I'm hoping to reread them, all of them, at some point, and this was a nice opportunity to just kind of, I guess, like dip my toes in and remember why I loved a thing that I loved when I was younger, and also kind of see it through new eyes. And yeah, it was great. I recommend it. If you're looking for a middle grade, or even if you're not, if you're just looking for a good book, like, yeah, I really recommend A Series of Unfortunate Events. Next, I would like to highlight two Tillie Walden books. This was my first year reading anything by Tillie Walden, and I have Miss Allie of Allison Pages to thank for that. Thank you, Allie, because I am 100% converted. I am now a Tillie Walden fan, and I definitely hope to read more of her work this coming year. So I read Spinning, which is, I guess, a graphic memoir-ish? I think so. I would call it that. About Tillie Walden's childhood and her experience training as a figure skater, like a pre-professional figure skater, I guess. And I love the art style. I thought it was beautiful. I love the colors. I love everything about like the way that she utilizes the pages in such an interesting way. And I thought the writing was strong. I thought the story was strong. It was really moving and beautiful, and introduced me to the world of kind of being a young figure skater, which is something I have no experience with. But I trained in ballet and different types of dance for many years, and was like at a pre-professional level with that. So it was really interesting to see the kind of parallels and the kind of questions around like what happens when you give up this activity that has been so central to your self-definition, especially when you're a young person and you're trying to like figure out who you are, and how scary that can be. So yeah, Spinning was great. My one complaint was that I felt like the ending was a bit rushed or wasn't super satisfying. Like I felt like the ending was not exactly what I wanted, and I wanted more. However, I still really enjoyed it. And after Spinning, I read On a Sunbeam, which is wonderful, amazing, so good, highly recommend. It's gay, it's sci-fi, there's a girl who has to find her girlfriend who she didn't get to say goodbye to, who's on another planet. The drawings are insanely good, like so beautiful. I wanted to put all of them up on my wall. Like if Tillie Walden made wallpaper, I would just like cover every room in my house because it's just like, I'm obsessed with her art. I think it's so beautiful. But at the same time, the story was really compelling. I didn't rush through it because I really wanted to like spend time. I think it's easy when you're reading a graphic novel to kind of like hurry through it because there aren't as many words on the page that you have to get through, so you have the ability to finish it more quickly. But with this one, I really enjoyed just like being able to slow down and kind of just like spend a longer time like just looking at the pages and enjoying the art. And yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I don't know if we need more people in the Tillie Walden fan club, but if you would like to join, you are more than welcome. Coming off of reading The Penultimate Peril, I also read Poison for Breakfast by Lemony Snicket as well. This is kind of a book of philosophy, but like in a more loose and fun way, I would say. It is pretty short. It's under 200 pages. And he references a lot of other works. I think there's a like section in the back that kind of talks about or directly cites all the kind of things that he's pulling from. I love this. I thought it was great. It was right what I needed like at that moment. And it was so like just calming to read and chill and low pressure. It feels like it can be a book for people at any age because it has this really kind of like soothing quality, and you can tell that he has this ability to write for young people and to break down complex ideas in a way that young people can understand. But at the same time, it's just like a great reminder of like, not to be dramatic or anything, but like the beauty of life and the meaning of life. And yeah, I would just describe this as like such a romp, such a fun and playful time, but somehow also so meaningful and beautiful. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I recommended it to everyone I knew as soon as I read it. We've moved on to color, which means I can't scroll yet because I want to finish this hand. So you're just gonna have to wait and listen to me as I try to fill up this time. We're almost there. Okay, first coat on the left hand is complete. I don't know if you can see that at all. Focus. You can't see it. It's kind of this like shimmery pinkish color, if you care to know. Okay, that's one hand done. The next book I would like to talk about is Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. So, this book I went into thinking it would be like so calm and chill and cute and fun, because if you're not familiar with the cover, I will put up a picture on the screen now so you can see. But it has kind of a navy blue cover with orange polka dots, and it has a plush hedgehog on the cover. And I saw that cover and I said, that looks like a fun book. That looks like it's going to be lighthearted and it's going to be enjoyable, and it might have some conflict because, you know, all good stories have conflict, but ultimately I think that's really what I need right now, is something light and fun. And I was not prepared because I did not look up trigger warnings, which you should do, but you don't expect that you will have to do when there's a plush hedgehog on the cover. And I did not do that. And I also was misled by the synopsis, which does not at all prepare you for the like innards of this book. If you want to read a lot of spoilers, I had a kind of heated review that I put on my Bookstagram. Links will be down below to that. I feel like I had two phases of this book, which was one, just being incredibly shocked and like so kind of appalled that this book that I picked up that I thought was going to be one experience turned to be out like entirely something else. However, once I got over that shock and over the kind of like intensity of the book and everything that happens, which is like, it's a lot, it's very dark, I was grateful to have read it, and I did think that it was quite like well written and well crafted. However, I will say it's dark, it's intense, it has a lot of like pretty intense and traumatic subject materials. A lot of intense and dark and dramatic subject material is covered in this book. I will just say, like, look up trigger warnings, see if it might be right for you, but it is like probably the darkest thing I read this year. I do still want to read Convenience Store Woman, and what's the other Murata book? I think there's another book by her that I would like to get to, but Convenience Store Woman is like top of my TBR. I would like to get to that this year. I am excited because I think it will overall be so much lighter than this was, and I did really enjoy her writing, so I'm excited to have more of a taste of it, I guess, and yeah, see what it's like when she's not writing about like cannibalism and incest and abuse. So check the trigger warnings. I'm doing this because I am still painting my nails and my nails are wet. I don't know really what this video is because I thought I was just going to talk about the books that were like my absolute favorite, but now I'm also kind of talking about some of the ones that I didn't like all that much, so, or like just some of the ones that were mid, so I don't really know what's happening here, but I'm painting my nails and that's a good thing. So, Fun Home by Alison Bechdel. This is, I think, it'd probably be considered a queer classic at this point. It's been turned into a Broadway play, Broadway musical, I guess, and I loved this book. I thought it was so good. It made me immediately want to run out and read some Camus and some Proust, because there are a lot of like literary references within this graphic novel, and Alison Bechdel talks a lot about, it's like primarily about her relationship with her dad, who died when she was in college, and also about her kind of coming into her queer identity and the relationship between those two things. And it's an incredible book. I thought it was so good. I think the parts of the narrative that like go into intense detail in terms of referencing these really like intense literary works. Probably went a bit over my head. There are references to Ulysses, which I haven't read yet, but I'm trying to convince my mom to do like a buddy read of that with me this year, James Joyce buddy read. So let me know if you would be interested in me attempting to get her on the channel to talk about James Joyce. But that is what I'm trying to do this year, and that will probably get me closer to like fully understanding the scope of Bechdel's novel. Not novel, it's a memoir. Graphic memoir. Even if parts of it did go over my head, I really did enjoy it, and I thought it was so moving and so powerful. And like And Now I Spill the Family Secrets, it also, like, the art and the words are like just in such perfect kind of synchrony and work so well together and are also so strong on their own. Yeah, really, really good. I really enjoyed it. If you haven't read Fun Home, read Fun Home. Also check trigger warnings. It is very dark. But I think if it's something that you can undertake safely and with your own personal mental health in mind, it is so, so good. My foot is asleep. Ah. Wait, but no feet for free on the internet. So another graphic novel or graphic memoir that I read this year, last year? Yeah, it's 2023, was The Magic Fish. And this book was so, so good. I loved the art. I loved the kind of like fairy tale themes and themes of queerness and immigration, and just kind of the way that all of the strands of the narrative were woven together was just so beautiful to me and so meaningful. I love, love, love the art style. Like, I tattoo that on my body, please, because it's so, so beautiful. I love the colors, and the story was so kind of like grounding and also relatable to me because I read a lot of fairy tales as a child. I read a lot of the like Hans Christian Andersen and the Grimm brothers versions of fairy tales, which are like very dark and intense. And I think this book draws on a lot of those themes. So I really enjoyed those aspects of it. Also, the way it talks about kind of like queerness in the context of being first-generation American and trying to communicate this identity with words that you maybe don't even have to your parents is just like, oh my god, it touched me. It touched me very deeply, and I loved it, and I'm really excited to read more from this author. As far as I know, they don't have any other graphic novels out right now, but I hope that they are working on one because I would definitely like to read more of their work. Two of my major discoveries of 2022 were Trung Le Nguyen and Tilly Walden. Like, this was like the year of the graphic novel for me, and those two definitely topped the list, along with Margaret Kimball and Alison Bechdel on the like memoir side of things. A perfect read. That's not everything I read. I don't even actually know how many books I've talked about thus far. I will try to count and like leave a number somewhere in here. That is all the books that I think I'm going to talk about in this video because it's getting a little bit long. I maybe underestimated my ability to like do this video on the fly and just like decide about books in the moment. I might also do a video about the worst books that I read in 2022 if that's something that you would be interested in seeing, because there were some books that really just like ground my gears. So yeah, that is it for this video. My nails are done. I don't know if you can see that. I just have to do a top coat and then we'll be good to go. So yeah, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being on my channel and watching my content as I become increasingly more unhinged with each passing video. If you like this, if you liked whatever this was, then feel free to subscribe to my channel, like the video, leave a comment down below. I would love to know what was the best book you read in 2022, or what was the book that you'd recommend. What was the worst book you read in 2022? What would you not recommend? What do you think I should avoid like the plague? But yeah, that's about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.